So he's going to start speaking here in a minute, and I'm going to pass out, he's got a handout for you. And so just, here's what I challenge you to do, because right after he's done, we're going to have lunch. And when we have lunch, we can keep playing, hang out. But here's what I'm going to challenge you is think of this question as he's speaking. What stands out? What's surprising? What's surprising? That's a great question no matter what you do, whether you're reading your Bible, whatever. What is surprising? It gets you thinking, right? So answer that question as he speaks, and then here's what I challenge you to do when we're together again is talk about it. So great way to learn and actually sharpen what we've learned is to talk about it with somebody else. So what's surprising, all right? Okay, so Mr. Mitten, at this time, you go ahead and appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, good morning, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you. And I sit here and I grab my piece of paper and realize that my tablet with all my notes are in the car. What a blessing. So I get to make it up in front of you, and that's okay. So you'll have the handout, I'll have the handout. So I'm standing between you and lunch. I get it. So I am highly motivated, and you are highly motivated for this to process quickly and as painlessly as possible. But I get to talk to you about something that some find quite boring, others find quite fascinating, and others have no clue why I'm talking about it at all, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about financial stewardship this morning, and I would have you turn to Luke chapter 16. Let's turn there, Luke chapter 16. And Luke chapter 16, we're going to read one verse. Luke 16 and verse 10. And then we'll say a quick prayer. Luke chapter 16 and verse 10, here is that verse. He that is faithful in that which is least is faithful also in much, and he that is unjust in the least is unjust also in much. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you for the privilege to spend some time talking about something you have designated as important. In fact, you've placed stewardship in almost every area of our life if we pause to consider it. So I pray that you'd help us to do so this morning. Even as our focus is financial, Lord, may the greater lesson be learned as well. We're grateful for this privilege. Ask that you'd intervene today, and we ask it in Christ's name. Amen. So this question of stewardship, I was talking with preacher, and the nice happy name is Faithfulness in Stewardship, a devotional for young adults. I'm going to throw myself in there. But the negative, the pejorative title is Ignore at Your Own Peril. Right? And so this interesting idea of what on earth is stewardship, specifically what's financial stewardship. A steward is simply someone who is put in charge of things that are not theirs. They're someone else's, and they are a steward of these things. Chick-fil-A's corporate purpose that I fell in love with in 1987 after 10 months of working there starts out to glorify God by being a faithful steward of all that's entrusted to us. That's the first section. The second section is to have a positive influence on all who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. But that stewardship principle has been ingrained, pounded into me over the years. It's as if God knew, here is the tough case. I'm going to put you in an organization that's going to force you to learn stewardship. So stewardship is about taking care of things that are not ours. Financial stewardship, as you see there in your handout, is the responsible management of money entrusted to us by God for His glory and for the good of others. This particular passage in Luke chapter 16, this principle of verse 10 is predicated upon this conversation or this story about the unjust steward. And this steward, beginning in verse 1 and going through verse 9, basically this rich man had a steward, and the steward was accused of not being a good steward, was not taking care of the things of his master in a way that was favorable to the owner of the money and the goods and resources. And so he's being called in to be held accountable. And this scares the steward. The steward goes out and does a couple of things, cuts some deals with some debtors. And then this principle is thrown in here in verse 10 and says that if you are faithful in small things, then you're going to be found faithful in bigger things. And why does all this matter? Why are we even spending time on this? Money reflects our values, or really how you spend your money reflects your values. You can tell nearly anything you want to know about someone by looking at their checking account to see where they spend their money. What are those monthly subscriptions that keep popping through, right? Where do they spend their money, whether it's the espresso I just had was amazing. Some people spend it on coffee, and others all throughout the day, all throughout the week, all throughout the month. These things begin to accumulate, and you can look at your money outflow at the end of the month or at the end of the year, and you can tell, whatever they're saying is important, this is really what's important. In an organization, if you want to know what the organization finds to be important, what their values are, you look at their budget. You look at their financial reports to see if what they say in the budget, this is important, is actually being spent to what they said. You and I have probably really good notions of things we think are important. And how well does our financial expenditures reflect what we say is important? Financial stewardship is important because it matters, because it reflects our values. Number two, you see there in your handout that when we can demonstrate a faithfulness in the small things, it prepares us, or rather it proves that we are prepared for greater things. And we're going to see that reflected when we get to the next passage. But this specific issue of financial stewardship is critical because we all want to have financial stability later in life. I mean, no one wakes up when you're young and goes, I'd rather prefer to be dirt poor when I turn 65. And so how can I get there? No one does that. So the things that you're doing today, you're building for that eventuality. And so the faithfulness and how you spend your money today, when you're young, sets you up to be able to spend more, be faithful, and found a better steward in greater things. And then lastly, you'll see that stewardship is part of our Christian witness. When those that are looking at us from the outside see where you and I are actually spending our money, they know where they're spending theirs. They know the nightclubs, they know the movies, they know the things that they are spending their wealth on, and they look at you, they look at us as Christians who say we are believers. It's a Christian witness how well we steward our finances. And when we're able to be more intentional about the small things that we currently have, it proves that we can be a better witness in the bigger things that God would be able to give to us. So principle number one here is in chapter 16 of Luke and verse 10. If you're found faithful in little things, you will be found faithful in greater things. Now let's turn over to the other passage, and that is Matthew 25. Matthew 25. And I'm going to quickly read verses 14 through 30 because this is the parable of the talents. This is not perhaps something that is new to you. You've most likely heard it before, and this is one of the bedrock foundational stories to introduce and discuss this idea of financial stewardship specifically. So Matthew 25, beginning in verse 14, "For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them other 5 talents. And likewise he that had received 2, he also gained other 2. But he that received 1 went and digged in the earth and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them. And so he that had received 5 talents came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained beside them 5 talents more. And his Lord said unto him, Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. And I lost my place. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 2 talents. Behold, I've gained 2 other talents beside them. His Lord said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. Enter thou into the joy of thy Lord. Then he which had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew that thou art a hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. And I was afraid, and went and hid thy talent in the earth. Lo, there thou hast, that is thine. His Lord answered and said unto him, Thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sowed not, and gathered where I had not strawed. Thou oughtest therefore to have put my money to the exchangers, and then at my coming I should have at least received mine own with usury. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. For unto every one that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. And cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So this is kind of a crazy cool story. Guy goes on a vacation or a business trip or something. He's gone for a long time. He leaves resources to 3 servants and entrusts those resources to each of them. He decides how much each one of these 3 get. He gave 5 to one, 2 to another, and 1 to another. So notice that the 3 that got them didn't decide for themselves how much. Hey, pick me, I'll take the 5. No. That was the person who was leaving. So we don't always get the option what's entrusted to us initially. But the principle of stewardship is the same for each one of these 3 servants that resources were given to. And then he goes away, and the one with 5 invests it, gets 5 more. Now he has 10. The one with 2 invests it, uses it wisely, and now has 4. And the one who only had 1 was afraid, and he just buries it. I mean, who goes and buries money? Actually, I know people who bury money. But so he goes and he buries it, and nothing happens because he's afraid that he might lose it. So there was a fear involved about what might happen should he venture to be a better steward of things. And so these 2 biblical principles are here in this outline. And notice that on Luke 16, it's talking about being faithful with a little, and then there's this integrity that should be there. The unjust steward in Luke 16 didn't have that integrity and was being held accountable for it by his master. And then trust is earned in small steps. That's the entire principle. You see the same themes in Matthew 25. The same themes. There's going to be a reckoning when in verse 19, after a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoneth with them. Never forget that there's going to be a reckoning for what we have been given, no matter how small. And it doesn't matter whether you think, I have the 5 talents, or I have the 2, or I have the 1, or I have whatever. What you've been given has been given to you by God, and the stewardship principle is do well with what I've been given you. Do well, because he's going to come back and he's going to reckon. He's going to hold you accountable. He's going to call you and say, tell me about your talents. Now, we can expand this to talk about those gifts that he's given to us. whether it's literary skills or music, or whether it's math or engineering, or what. No, specifically today we're talking about finances. Because all those other people who have all these different gifts, they still have to pay their bills. They still have to earn money. And so financial stewardship is on all of us. So while you can expand this to invest the talents God's given you in different skills, specifically with finances, this is super critical that we understand that this is very, very important. This matters to God. And it ought to matter to us, because one day he's going to come back and he's going to ask us, hey, how did you do with what I gave you, right? Here's the cool thing and the scary thing. We are answering that question every day. We're answering that question every day. And so the reckoning that is to come, you cannot wait for to start doing good then. You have to start answering the question today and build up these answers. It's the stewardship of today that builds the trust for tomorrow. That's the stewardship principle, especially when it comes to finances. So look at these key truths here. God owns everything. We are simply managers of it. Every dollar is a discipleship opportunity. Every dollar is a discipleship opportunity. How do we manifest Christ with our money? And how do we use what he's given to us financially to demonstrate a faithfulness in God and good stewardship in our money? Notice, because of the passage in Matthew 25, that fear led to waste. He was afraid he was afraid, so he buried it. And notice also that faithfulness or faith led to an increase. It led to fruitfulness. Here's an important thing with financial stewardship. At your age, ignorance is not an excuse. You will not ignore your way into financial stewardship. If you don't know, research, ask, be intentional about stewardship. Well, I don't have the gift of stewardship. Stewardship is about being faithful in what you have and continuing to be faithful. And then in God's timing, he looks at your track record of faithfulness and he says, okay, I'm going to give a little bit more because I've seen this faithfulness in the finances of this young person who took the time, even though they have no clue about money, they took the time to ask questions not because they want to get rich, but because they want to please the God who entrusted what they have to them. So it's super critical that you're not simply ignorant and ignore it. You cannot ignore your way into good stewardship. So here's some practical habits there in your handout. Number one, you need to be consistent and joyful in your giving. The Bible talks about tithing and giving, and I would start with 10%. I would say this perhaps is the first hurdle in your journey to being a faithful steward of what God's entrusted to you with money. Because when you give 10% and you go, there's no way I can give 10%. I mean, have you seen how much money I make, how little money I make, whatever? There's no way that I can give God 10%. God can do more with your 90% that's left over than you can do if you keep 100. Because God actually is the one who, in an agrarian society, he used the illustration to the Israelites. You guys are robbing me by not giving me tithes. Don't you know that I control the rain for your crops? Don't you know that I control the heat for your crops? Don't you know that your harvest, your yield is really predicated upon my graciousness? So, well, my car keeps breaking down. This happens. God is in charge of all these things. I'm not saying it's a one-for-one direct connection. I'm just saying that faith in God is a much better way than faith in self. And so when you commit to that, wow, this is definitely a step of faith because on paper it doesn't seem to add up. Doesn't matter. God can do more with the 5 loaves and 2 fishes and feed what he needs in my life than I can do with a smorgasbord buffet of money. Because you and I will mess it up, I'm telling you, if we aren't careful. Give to God and give to God by giving to others, right? Be generous and joyful in your stewardship and your giving habits. Number 2, budget. Plan each month. Well, this is a big fat pain, isn't it? I don't know about you. I have many, many times budgeted. And here's what I have learned. Money is simply a digit. Whether the little decimal point comes after the first digit in your income or expense, or the second, or the third, or the fourth, it doesn't matter the digits. It matters how much goes out and how much comes in. As my dad used to tell me, you ready for this? If your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep will become your downfall. If your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep will become your downfall. Doesn't matter the digit. So you got to budget so that what goes out at least is somewhere close to what's coming in, because bad things happen over time when they don't add up, right? Trust in God, make a budget, plan each month, be intentional, save, figure out a way. Let me go back to the budget. The budget, there's a couple of 3 apps here if you want to look at. Mint, who has fiddled with Mint at all, right? Anybody know what Mint is? So Mint is a budget thing. YNAB, Y-N-A-B, youneedabudget.com. It's an app, right? You need a budget, neat little thing to look at. Another one is Good Budget. So look at those 3 and see, hey, what can I do? How can this help me get a better handle on my finances so that my outcome doesn't exceed my income, right? Outflow doesn't exceed my income. Save, build that cushion. One of the things that happens in life, or tragedies happen, bad things happen. That car does break, that tire does blow. Those things happen, and it's really annoying when you don't have any money to pay for it. So begin to save. Put a little bit back. You say, I can't afford to save. No. Start with an intentionality. Start with the practice. Even if it's $1, have the victory of the dollar. Yay, I save. And then make it 2, and then make it 5, and make it 10, and do it every single month. Create the habits of stewardship. The digits are just digits. The practices are huge. All right? So figure out a way to save. If you can do it automatically, have it to where money goes in, boom, goes right into my savings account, X amount. Create the habit of giving, create the habit of saving, and then investing. Think long term. Investing? I don't have any money to invest. If you haven't done some research on long-term retirement planning, this is the craziest thing to mention to your age. I get it. But look at what is called an IRA, an individual retirement account. Figure out a way to get one open. Go on Google, how do I open an IRA? And figure out a way, and then start putting money into it. You may have to build up some savings in order to open one, because there may be a minimum level before you can actually open an individual retirement account, an IRA. And there's some tax things that you got to pay attention to. This is where ignorance is no excuse. You are brilliant, smart, happy people. You use smartphones. So you can figure this out. Create a way to invest, even if it's just a little bit each month. So giving, saving, investing, create good financial stewardship habits, and let the digits occur as God provides. Okay? Lastly, live simply. Boy, when you can simplify your financial life, it is so nice. When you don't have this and that and this and that and this and that, it's amazing when you get my age how many subscriptions just happen and you don't even know it. Painful. So live simply. Live simply. So, how can I be more faithful with my finances? These are questions you need to think about and ask. God, help me understand how well am I doing with your finances, knowing that you will come and you will give me an accounting of it, and I will have to answer, how well am I doing? And let the Holy Spirit talk to you. Give you some questions as to how faithful am I with my finances? How can I be more faithful? Where have I been maybe fearful, and where have I been careless? I will tell you that if you are not intentional about financial things, you won't be a good steward. There's this connection between faithfulness and initiative, faithfulness and action. If you don't take the time and effort to actually create a budget or save the $5 because that's all I can save every month, or open up an IRA and invest $15 because that's all I have at the end of the month, if you don't become intentional, it's hard to be a good steward. One of my favorite quotes is, it's very hard to get something done if you don't do it. That's my simple life. So you got to be intentional. You have to be faithful. Know that this that you have, all of it, is God's. You're simply an awesome, designated steward, manager. And your entire life, it's so cool. Your entire life, none of this matters. All this stuff, 200 years from now, no one's going to know you and I ever existed. I know it sounds horrible, but that's true. Right? The book of Ecclesiastes tells us this. So what lasting legacy can I leave? I just simply invest it into eternity through good stewardship and let God do what he wants while I'm here. But if I can target my little one talent and not bury it, and I can be intentional about it, then I too will get a well done, thou faithful steward. That's what you're looking for. That's the happy smile at the end of the rainbow, if you will. So this idea of being intentional and faithful. Last question here. What step can I take to invest in kingdom purposes? Well, giving is an opportunity that's all around you every day. Every day. Be very intentional about what you can give. Don't overgive. Don't give yourself into a homeless situation. That would not be a good steward. So giving intentionally, giving faithfully, give, but understand that you are ultimately the steward. What you can do today, sometimes the dollar you don't give today, you can turn into $10 tomorrow, right? So be intentional, but be wise and ask God, how can I purpose? One of the best ways, of course, is that tithe to the church. And then the church can help do ministry. So give it to missions, etc. So how can I invest at this stage? Start small, start wisely, but be intentional about it and let God do it. So the memory verse, I highly encourage you to understand and learn this principle in Luke chapter 16, verse 10. And here's it basically, if you're found faithful in little, you'll be found faithful in much. So God, help me to be faithful in the little bit that you've given to me. When I say little bit, digits don't matter. It could be 8 digits. It's still a little bit compared to Elon Musk or somebody, right? Digits don't matter. Faithfulness does. Initiative does. Being active about it. Being intentional about it. So commit to these stewardship actions. Figure out a way to save a little bit. Give a little bit. Invest a little bit and say, God, I'm doing this because I want to be a faithful steward. Please open my eyes to ways that I can be a better steward. Because when I get older, I sure would love to be able to do more that I can't do today, but the practices are basically the same. Learn them, practice them, hone them, let God give as he wants to, and you answer for what he's given you. Don't answer for someone else. You will not. The guy with 2 didn't answer for the guy with 5. It's an awesome thing. So you will answer for what you've been given. May God give us wisdom and grace. May he give you wisdom and grace as we partner in this life to be faithful stewards of what he's given to us financially, as well as all the other happy things he's given to us. So, all right, I'm going to open this for Q&A. I think I have 5-10 minutes. Any questions on financial stewardship? I totally make up answers, so it's okay if you can ask anything. Yes?
How do you limit with giving to tithe, and also tithe, even if you want to give additionally to your church, like to Faith Promise Missions or like a building project or something like that? What do you put the limit on where it's like, okay, I want to give in faith, but I also don't want to give.
Right, so I think there are some fundamental things you have to care for. You have to care for your family. It's good to have. In Florida, this may sound like an option, but I like air conditioning. I grew up without it, so it is an option, but I like air conditioning. I would not give air conditioning away so that my wife and kids have to live without air conditioning just so I can give it to a missionary somewhere else. That's me personally. I think you have to ask these questions, right? The fundamental things you have to care for. Do I need to drive a Tesla model, what's the top model, Model S? I don't even know. Does anybody know? Like, good. I'm glad I'm in good company. I don't have to drive a model super awesome. I can drive something else and give the rest of it away or give a portion of it away, right? I don't need to live in a mansion. I can live in a much smaller house. Why? Because these things don't matter. So what does matter, lock it in. Don't give that away because that's stewardship, right? You're caring for those that God's entrusted to you, and he's going to care for that missionary. He's got others that are out there. But when you have some excess and God lays it upon your heart, why don't you give a little bit, right? Designate it to that missionary. That's an awesome thing. You don't have to always do it in perpetuity. You can tell that missionary, listen, for the next 2 years, I'm going to commit to this much more. It's only $15 more. But that 15 means a lot to me. Hopefully it'll mean a lot to you, right? And then at the end of the 3 years, you reevaluate it. So the giving side of things, you have to make sure you take care of what you've been entrusted with, because that's financial stewardship, first level. Second level, then you give that to the church. You give that to God and let him take care of things. I start with the 10% and then go on from there. The Bible talks about the right hand not knowing what the left hand. Usually that's my wife and I. So, and so that's a good thing too, where I don't always know how much. I don't. I have to stop and figure it out. And that's okay because God's continuing to provide. And that's what I want. And then the rest of it just is over. So, yes. So an IRA is a great thing. There's two types of IRAs. There's a traditional IRA where you put money in and you get to deduct the amount that you put in off your income tax that year, right? It's called a deductible. It's really cool, up to a certain amount. And then when you go later and you pull out at the end of your, you get to retirement, the excess that you pull out, that's when you'll pay income tax on it. So you get a tax break on the $500 or $1,000 you put in this year on your income tax. But when you pull it back out, when you're 65, 70, you're going to start paying income tax on that $1,000 you took out, right? So the gamble is that I'm going to be making less when I'm retired, so I'm going to pay less income tax when I pull it. So it's better for me to get the tax break now. There's a second type of IRA called a Roth, R-O-T-H. A Roth IRA, you don't get the tax benefit today, but when you pull out your increase when you're 70 or 68 or whatever it is, you don't pay any income tax on those. Those are tax-free because you're paying for the money you stuck in today. That's a Roth. I like Roth. I think Roth's a pretty cool idea. So you don't pay the income taxes later. So there's other things. You can ask your employer about a 401k. If you don't have the opportunity for a 401k, then they might have other plans, like a simple plan. I would ask your employer, do you have any retirement plans that I can be a part of? The other thing you can do is you can invest in what is called a brokerage account. It's your regular taxable brokerage account. You get no tax benefit today or tomorrow, but you at least get to add money, and you can create some interest as whatever types of investments, mutual funds would increase in value, and then that interest that you're getting and the gain that you're getting and the value of those, you can actually have as a brokerage account. But you don't get a lot of tax benefits from that, but it's better, it's still savings. You stick it in the bank, you're gonna get savings. You'll get a bigger return if you put it in a brokerage account. When you pull out that money from a brokerage account, the increase is going to be taxed on what's called a capital gains, which is basically I bought it for $1,000 and it's now $1,200. That $200 differential is subject to what is called a gains tax or an income tax of a different name. So, good question. Other questions? Yes. Yeah, I love that question. I think if you are able to create a pad, some people say 3 months worth of your salary. Some people say 6 months worth. I was reading a book about retirement. They're telling retirees you should have a year's worth saved. Well, because things happen, right? And I think you need to provide for a potential adverse effect. And maybe it's loss of work because of an injury or things like this, or it's a vehicle that just got totaled in the insurance or whatever. I think you need to have some set away. When you begin to have a ton set away and you're not utilizing it, and you're just thinking, I can't wait to buy that model, whatever, and I like Tesla, it's okay. But I think when you begin to think materialistically as opposed to investment into God and what He would desire, I think that's where that rub is. And that's a different thing for everybody, because God's going to impress upon your heart on something maybe different than He would someone else's. And so your savings for an eventual mishap may look differently than someone else's ultimately. And so I think the important thing is that your desire is to be a faithful steward. God, help me to be a faithful steward. And don't just say it today. Rewind it. For me, every missions conference is that question about giving, about stewardship, about what am I doing? And that's, if you can find ways or times, doesn't have to be that time, but any time, when are you asking yourself, how faithful am I in with my finances? If I were to broadcast my expenditures for everyone on my Facebook to see, what would they tell me would be my values? That's brutal, my friend. If we were to look at the things that we purchased and that were broadcast to the church, what would they think my values would be? Not that they are the determiners, but ultimately God is the one that's looking, and He's the one we want to please. But sometimes we can get a decent feel on, yeah, that's pretty obvious bad value, right? So the savings thing, I think when you get to a certain degree, it's between you and God. And then the commitment after that, I think that's the big thing. If it just continues to rise and rise and rise, well, I need to set a mark, hit the mark, give. And if God says, hey, I really want you to set the mark a little higher because I'm about to send this into your life and you don't know it yet, then address that when it happens, right? Good question. Other questions? Ooh, it's 12 o'clock. I have to go. Thank you all for listening to me talk about money and financial stewardship. But you are the future. God will use you greatly if you're willing to invest in tomorrow by investing in today. Thank you so very much.
question. What was surprising? Okay, so we're going to do, can you guys hear me? We're going to get ready for lunch, and really encourage you to talk about that question. What stood out? What was surprising to you? And I don't know if you caught it, but man, like the thing that just was so crystal clear was that the mindset of money that Christians are supposed to have. It's a different mindset. The stewardship mindset is so powerful. Let me read this real quick. I'm not adding any more, but I just want to share it. Psalm 50, God said this, "Hear, O my people, and I will speak, O Israel, and I will testify against thee. I am God, even thy God. I will not reprove thee for thy sacrifices or thy burnt offerings to have been continually before me. I will take no bullock out of thy house, nor he-goats out of thy folds, for every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills. I know all the fowls of the mountains, and the wild beasts of the field are mine. If I were hungry, I would not tell thee, for the world is mine, and the fullness thereof. Will I eat the flesh of bulls, or drink the blood of goats? Offer unto God thanksgiving, and pay the vows unto the Most High. That's pretty clear. God's like, I own it all, right? And so what that means then is what he's giving to us is just for us to steward. Like it's in line with how we were created. We were created to have dominion, to be representatives of God. And so it's literally like God, he gives you this little thing, whether it's money, family, whatever, skill, and he's like, go do something with it, just for your sake, to give him glory. So that mindset of a steward is so awesome, that I get to spend God's money, God's gifts that he's given me, God's time to glorify him and to be useful on this earth. So super cool. Thankful for that.